Time to stock up on your warm weather favorites for summertime entertaining, gift giving, and enjoying. Supermarket Liquors and Wines is your headquarters for all the liquors and wines you'll need throughout the season. And you know what? They're open 7 days a week for your convenience, late night Friday, Saturday, and always plenty of cashiers on hand to speed you on your way. You want to find out what their specials are every week? Just check them out online, supermarketliquor.com. They're Niagara's largest liquor store, which means their prices and selection are the best you're going to find. Supermarket Liquors and Wines, Niagara Falls Boulevard, Military Road, just across from the Fashion Outlet Mall. Supermarket Liquors and Wines, where you'll always find plenty of brightly lit free parking in front of the store. And plenty of cashiers on hand to speed you on your way. Supermarket Liquors and Wines.
The show starts in 1 minute. And now, on with the show.
The opinions expressed on NiagaraBroadcastNetwork.com are those of the host and the guest, not of management or the sponsors.
The Salad Row Show.
You look at me so differently. Have I changed so much from who I used to be? But in Niagara, you promised me the moon.
Get a lot of requests for that song. That's Barbara Streisand. A thing called Niagara. I didn't really listen to that too much before, but somebody brought it to my attention and came by the radio station here and our TV side, and a lot of people wanted to hear Niagara. Barbara Streisand, if you want to look it up. Incidentally, if you want to look up our shows are now archived. They're on YouTube. So anytime you see a show here, about an hour after it airs, it'll be up on YouTube, and it'll be there for you to watch in the near future. Today might be one you're going to want to revisit. Interesting subject and a lot of things going on that you're probably going to be amazed at. Before we start, I want to remind you that the Hyde Park Golf Course was scheduled to open today, which we're recording on the 15th, and we're live right now actually till 7:30 if you want to call in. I'll give you the number in a minute. But the golf course was supposed to open today. Rick Horn said it did not open because the weather was so bad and the greens were not in shape to be trampled on. So if you're looking to go golfing, Rick said they will be opening the course probably within the next few days. The next time they have a couple of good days in a row without bad weather so you don't ruin the grounds. But if you want to call and find out the number of the golf course, 205-8055. 205-8055. They'll be able to tell you exactly when that course is opening up. I got to welcome a good, actually an old friend. We used to work together years ago. Paul Barr was a fireman. Now he's a lawyer, moving up the ladder.
Moving on up.
Pull your mic near you there, Paul. I don't
Moving
know.
on up.
Yeah, moving up a little bit, yeah. So now you're a lawyer, and you kind of made a name for yourself by going, we don't represent drunk drivers, we sue them.
That's right. I worked with a firm that was their slogan back when I was on your show a long time ago. With our old friend Ted Brenner, who we lost recently.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, Ted and I were on together. That's right.
He's a good guy, Ted. But now you're into, well, you still sue drunk drivers.
We sue drunk drivers, among others.
And your firm is Fonzie and Barr?
Finisi and Barr.
Mild close, Fonzie. I'm thinking of the guy. I'm thinking of Fonzie from Sesame Street.
That's right.
Okay. You look like the guy from Sesame Street today.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, no, so anyway, so now you're into something new that came up that caught my eye, and that's why I asked you to come back, because there's a lot of questions about this that I don't understand, and it's concerning the clergy and abuse and lawsuits and the law, and maybe you could explain what's going on.
Okay, sure. The New York State Legislature just passed, and the governor signed, the Child Victims Act. And what the Child Victims Act does is it permits anybody at all who has a claim against someone who sexually abused them or somebody who was in charge of the person who sexually abused them until they are 55 years old. And for 1 year only, beginning in August, there's a window period where even the 55-year age limit does not apply. So from August 2019 until August 2020, anybody can look back and bring a claim against the person that abused them sexually or the institution that was negligent in permitting that abuse.
So let me understand this. So, and I talk to people now they ask me in my other position as a police officer, a lot of people say, this happened to me 15 years ago, this priest did this, and I don't think it's right, what could I do about it? Well, if it's 15 years ago, and maybe the priest isn't around anymore, what can they do about it, if anything?
Well, there's two things that can happen. First of all, our court system is divided into two parts, the criminal part and the civil part. So if the person is young enough, you say 15 years ago, if the person is younger than 28 years old, the police can prosecute that person because the criminal statute of limitations ends when the victim turns 28 years old. Now, the civil part of this.
Yeah. So what if the person who you're talking about that could be convicted, what if he's not around anymore?
If the person has passed away or can't be found, what the attorneys will do is look to the institution that person was part of. So supposing it's a teacher that abused a student or a scout leader who abused a kid in the troop, that kid as an adult now can look back, and a lot of research has to go on, but they can look back and bring a claim against the scouts, the school district, the diocese, the parish, whatever the religion maybe the person was a part of that they worked for. So that's where the claims are being brought. And a claim can also be brought against the individual if they can be found.
What type of proof do you have to have? I mean, I'm thinking that maybe this type of thing is going to be a money grab for somebody. Somebody that goes, this person's not around anymore. I'll claim that he or she did this to me, and maybe I can get some money. What proof do you have to proceed?
Well, there's two things I want to say to that. The first thing I want to say is I've interviewed dozens of people who've claimed to be abused. And being part of that, suffering that, is such a personal, devastating thing. I haven't met a single person that I thought was making it up for money. It's not like saying.
But how do you prove it when?
Well, and the second part is there is a standard of proof. The burden is on the person making the accusation to prove it. That's how the court system works. That's who bears the burden legally.
But I'm thinking most of these instances are not going to be in a public place. It's going to be in a private room. It's
That's
going to
right.
be. So if the person says he did this and the person's not there to say yes or no, how could you possibly prove that?
Well, what you need to establish is notice on behalf of the institution. So, and I'm going to use the church as the example because there's been so much publicity around the church, but this is not confined to the Roman Catholic Church. But because there's been so much publicity around the failures of the church, I'll use that as the example. Many of the priests who've been accused of abusing children, the diocese where the abuse happened had notice. They knew that that particular priest had been abusing children. So when the new victim comes forward and says that this is what this priest did to me,
How are you going to know that? I mean, you go to a parish that thinks they're going to be sued, and you say, "Look, I'm representing this person." They say such and such abused somebody. You think they're going to go, "Oh yeah, sure, I remember. They came and told me."
and that's been the problem with the Catholic Church right now. They have not been truthful and honest sharing the information. So it's taken lawyers and detectives and private people to create many databases. One in particular is called bishopsaccountability.com. And if you go to that website, bishopsaccountability.org, if you look at that website, you'll see if you can enter a priest's name, and it'll give you the history of where that priest was, if he is an accused abuser, how many people have accused that priest, where the abuse was, and you can get a lot of background. And now the new victim can say, "Yeah, me too." And I haven't met a single person that I wasn't convinced had endured something tragic.
Let me ask you, before we get into this a little more, and we'll take some phone calls in a minute. When you say abuse, and we're talking now, you're hearing a lot, like you say, the church, the priest, it's not always male on male abuse. What are the kinds of abuse that would qualify?
Okay, the statute, and I brought a copy with me, because the civil statute refers to what the criminal statute describes as sexual abuse. And it's essentially any sexual contact between somebody over 18 and somebody under 18.
Now, I mean, we've all been to the sensitivity and abuse training and that, and they're telling you stuff like, you can't slap a girl on the back and say, "Wow, you look really sharp in that dress today." If she doesn't want that, that's sexual abuse.
I don't know that would
Harassment?
qualify.
Harassment.
Well, I don't even know that would constitute harassment. I don't think that it fits the definition of the statute. The statute's tightly defined. I've got a copy, and it describes graphically what.
And what is sexual abuse?
The Section 130 of the New York State Penal Code describes sexual offenses as oral sexual conduct, anal sexual conduct,
Forcibly touching, I'm assuming, that type of thing?
They talk about helpless people. It talks about forcible compulsion.
Right.
So it's pretty unmistakable what that is. We saw some of my favorite politicians being either ridiculed or resign over allegations of crossing the line. Crossing the line doesn't mean that they violated the Childhood Sex Act. First of all, it's
Right.
got to be a child, right? So
It's got to be a child for what?
for it to be qualified under the Child Victims Act.
Okay, the child victim.
It's got to be a child, somebody under 18 years old. Once you're 18, you turn 18, you're
But
not
but
a child
if
anymore.
if there's say in the workplace,
Yep.
you force somebody to have, or you tell somebody, if you want to keep your job, you got to have sex with
That's
me.
a whole different set of rules and laws, but yeah, you're in big trouble if you do that, for
Yeah,
sure.
okay.
Oh, yeah, you lose your job over that, and more. You can be criminally prosecuted for that. But that's a different set of rules and laws that, frankly, I'm not an expert on right now. We don't represent folks with that, in that situation. It's more employment law.
Yeah, are you handling mostly the religion side of this right now?
I would
Is
say
that the
about-
major portion of it?
I would say that probably 2/3 of the cases we're getting are involving the Roman Catholic Church. And we have cases against school districts. We have cases that involve,
No, school district would be what, a teacher making advances to one of the students?
You know,
And is that,
here's the crazy, maybe you'll remember this. This is the most bizarre thing. I have a case right now because somebody is making the allegation that he was devastated over having had to swim nude. And that was a thing that they did back in the day.
yeah, I remember that, sure.
When I was in 7th grade, the rule was if you forgot your swim trunks, you had to swim anyway with nothing.
Right, yeah, it's the same thing.
And dry off with the paper towels. Well,
Yeah,
it was humiliating, and finally, thankfully, somebody thought better of that practice.
well, I do remember this. This used to strike me the wrong way, not literally. The coach, where people would be swimming nude,
Yeah.
on occasion would walk up and slap someone in the ass, go, hey, that's a good thing. And I would say, this is not right that a guy, this is not right. It always struck me the wrong way.
Yeah, and that, for whatever reason, I wish somebody would explain it to me, because it was commonplace, yet this day and age, it strikes most people as just bizarre.
Yeah.
But that's how it was back in the day, and not just in Niagara Falls, other districts as well in this region. That was the practice.
Okay, so my gym class where this used to happen,
Yeah.
I remember the coach doing this to people. He never did it to me, but I remember him doing it. Would they have a possible claim against the school district? at this
Potentially,
time?
I would say yes.
Really?
I think they thought better of the practice for a reason. They realized that it was affecting certain kids. You know, not everybody's affected the same way by the same incident. It's like a car accident. I could get rear-ended, and you could get rear-ended, and my neck could be hurt, and you can walk away. Everybody's impacted differently by similar events.
I want to open the phones up in a minute. We're talking to Paul Barr. He's an attorney who's handling a lot of these cases. One thing that caught my eye, did you write or interview, did you say that a priest tried to abuse you at one time?
Yes,
What was...
I've been very public about this issue myself, because I was assaulted by the priest at my parish in Niagara Falls. It was Sacred Heart Church.
And how did this happen?
I was in 10th grade. I just gotten my driver's license, and the priest invited me to the rectory to talk about starting a new youth group for students who had already made their confirmation, because if you're Catholic, you know that once a lot of kids make their confirmation, that's more of a graduation, and they feel like they don't need to go back. So this priest, I'll tell you his name because he's on the list. He's deceased, but he is on the list of credibly accused priests in the Buffalo Diocese. His name is Michael Freeman, and he was a Falls guy before he was a priest. And he invited me to the rectory to talk about, he flattered me with this notion that I was a leader, even though I was a kid, and the kids looked up to me, which wasn't true, but I wanted to think it was, right? So I went, and the first thing he did when I walked in the door was he handed me a beer. And at 16 years old,
I was going to say, you're
16 years old, I was pretty excited to have a beer in my hand. I'm going to drink it with Father Mike, and we went up to his room, and he started to talk to me about athletics, and he asked me what sport I played, and I was a wrestler. I was really proud to tell him that I was about to be the team captain, And while we're talking about this, he explained that very physical athletes are easily injured, and that I could hurt my genitals in this activity. And he convinced me that I should let him examine me because he had some special training. He was a chaplain in the Army, and he said that...
You didn't think that was odd that he would say,
Oh, yeah,
he's not
I
a
said-
doctor? I mean, he didn't...
I said, well, I'm good. I'll let my mother take me to the doctors. But he was persistent, and he was a priest with a collar around his neck. And he said he had this training, and he says, it'll just take a second. You don't want to be sterile. You don't want to be sterile. So I said, no, I don't want to be sterile. And early detection is the most important thing. And he walked over and he laid me down. He forcibly laid me on his couch and examined me. And in an instant, I knew the difference between a bad and a good touch.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate because I got out of there. I was locked in from the inside with a key.
Wow.
And I flew home and told my mother, and my mother said I shouldn't tell anybody. That was the mindset back then. Don't tell anybody.
Mm-hmm. Don't tell anybody because they would think ill of you or the priest or both or what?
Maybe a little bit of both, and what my father might do, how he might react if he got maybe violent, protecting me.
Mm-hmm.
So all those things I think ran through my mother's head and said, just forget about it. Don't go to church for a while. And then, sadly, I've come to learn that this particular priest had many more victims, and some of the things that he did were just atrocious.
It sounds ridiculous. I'm trained to examine you, and these guys went through that much of a scenario to con people.
The grooming process and the stories that I've heard have made me sick to my stomach time and again. And that particular grooming exercise, I've heard 5 times. It's almost as though they taught each other
What to say.
what to say. I've heard, and this was reported. This all kind of started and became really, really well known because the Pennsylvania Attorney General put together a report, and interestingly, he names this Father Michael Freeman in the Pennsylvania report because he took a child across state lines and abused the person there.
Jeez.
But one of the things that some priests did, I believe in Philly, they would give a gift to the child, like a cross, something to wear,
Right.
that they abused, and that would identify that child as easy prey for their friends.
Oh my God.
And that's what the district attorney just learned in Pennsylvania within the year.
So they passed these kids around. They said,
They
"This guy,
pass
this
these
one
children
here."
around, and the problem is once a child's abused once, their self-esteem plummets, and it's not unusual for them to be more easily abused after that.
Oh my God! We're talking with Attorney Paul Barr. Now, if you have a question, you could call us. The number is 716-333-3020. We won't mention no names. If you have a question, a scenario, something you want to know about, and we'll get more into this. We're coming back. We're talking about abuse and cases and the law. Stock up on your warm weather favorites for summertime entertaining, gift giving, and enjoying. Supermarket Liquors and Wines is your headquarters for all the liquors and wines you'll need throughout the season. And you know what? They're open 7 days a week for your convenience, late night Friday, Saturday, and always plenty of cashiers on hand to speed you on your way. You want to find out what their specials are every week? Just check them out online, supermarketliquor.com. They're Niagara's largest liquor store, which means their prices and selection are the best you're going to find. Supermarket Liquors and Wines, Niagara Falls Boulevard at Military Road, just across from the Fashion Outlet Mall. Supermarket Liquors and Wines, where you'll always find plenty of brightly lit free parking in front of the store. And plenty of cashiers on hand to speed you on your way. Supermarket Liquors and Wines. Talking with attorney Paul Barr, 333-3020 is the number. Now, if you call the show, And we pick up the phone. You're in line. Hang on. Pay attention to the phone and not the computer because you will get mixed up. And this program will be on YouTube a little later tonight, and we'll repeat. We'll be up there in archive if you want to see it again. Hi, you're on the air with Paul Barr.
Hey, Sal.
Hi.
Hey, Paul, are you still a practicing Catholic now?
As a matter of fact, yes, I am. I attended Mass yesterday at St. Peter's and got my palms for Palm Sunday.
Now, how has this affected you personally?
Well, as I have said many times, the institutional church, the clerics, the people who are responsible for the record keeping, I'm angry with them. I'm just being honest. I'm furious with them. And it makes it difficult to attend Mass. But one thing that I think I'm fortunate about is through the course of my Catholic education, I attended Niagara University, and I was a philosophy major. And I have a daughter who is a Catholic Studies master's degree. She earned her master's degree and was in a convent at one time. The subject matter is near and dear to me, and I love...
Are you suing the diocese?
I am suing the diocese, yes. I intend to file my claim August 1st.
And do you feel that the bishop should resign?
I think at this point that would be the healthiest thing for the diocese is if he did step aside. If you look at the website that I discussed earlier, bishopsaccountability.org, there are so many accusations about him knowing of priests that he was in charge of,
Covering
them up, moving them around. He was the, I believe, auxiliary bishop to Cardinal Law in Boston, about whom the movie Spotlight.
Coming down, sure.
The movie Spotlight that won the Academy Award last year.
Right,
well,
great movie.
Yeah, well, our bishop worked for that cardinal, and I believe was part of that whole corruption issue.
Now, he came out today with some kind of new plan. I guess they're going to reveal more priests They revealed more priests now, I guess, in the last week or so.
That's right.
And I think I saw something on the news today that he wants to meet with people, individuals who were abused, one-on-one. I think that's what I heard in the news. Is that what he's going to try to do?
I haven't seen that yet. I know that he announced a new plan, or that he was forming a new plan.
Right.
I'm interested. I keep an open mind. I like to give him the benefit of the doubt, but sadly, I've been disappointed consistently with every new plan in this diocese.
This goes back for centuries. This isn't something new to the Catholic Church. This goes back a long time. I think Pope Benedict, the one who's retired,
Yes.
recently wrote a story, an article.
Yes.
My brother was telling me about how far back this really goes, and it's been going on forever. And I feel bad for what happened to you. All right, and I know back then it was always, don't say nothing, don't say a word, when abuse comes around. But I applaud you for coming out the way you're doing it.
Thank you. Thank you.
And it's not easy to talk about what happened to you. I mean, I've been a Catholic all my life. I was an altar boy. I can say honestly, I was never approached or abused in any part of my life, and I don't know what would happen if I were dead. All right, but I know back then it was always, don't say a word. You don't want to offend the priest. I remember, was it Father Ward in St. Charles? He's on the list too, I think.
Yes. Yes.
And he's passed away, and we knew him personally. All right, and when we saw his name on there, we were stunned. All right, but I was stunned by a few priests that I knew from Niagara Falls that were on there. And I think this one priest just got cleared. Excuse me, from Buffalo. He was suspended. Now they put him back they cleared him, but they're putting him back into service again, which is wrong. I think once you're accused, I think you should just let him retire and whatever. But I do applaud you, and I'm sure this isn't easy for you or your family. And I wish you the best of luck. and we'll be praying for you because you need a lot of prayers. I'm glad you still believe in the Catholic religion.
Thank you.
Because it is a great religion. I mean, all religions are great. When you're born and raised Catholic, it's something different. And I do applaud you. I wish you the best of luck with your practice, and to bring closure to people and bring closure to yourself too. So that's about it. But I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
for
you.
your
I
call.
really appreciate that. It means a lot.
It's a tough thing to talk about, but apparently now that it's coming to light, people are getting more and more interested in checking into these things and talking to a lawyer. We'll give you your number before you leave in case somebody
thank
does
you.
want to talk to you. I'm curious about this though. If somebody wants to talk to a lawyer or they want to file a case or whatever, what do you charge them?
So, in New York State, we have, for a civil case, what's called the contingency fee. What a contingency fee does is it lets the attorney take a portion of whatever award is given at the end of the case, which means that people without a lot of money can bring cases against a large institution like the Roman Catholic Church or like a big school district without having to pay an attorney what that institution can afford to pay their lawyers. So an attorney like myself and other law firms that are doing what I'm doing, we get paid at the end, and the typical retainer would be not retainer, but the typical fee would be 1/3 of whatever the award is at the end of the case.
So if somebody were to come to you and they felt they were abused, they want to talk to you about it or whatever, there's not a charge to come in and talk to you?
There's no fee at all.
And if you proceed with a claim,
Yes.
there's no fee unless you collect and you take a third?
Exactly.
Okay, because people are wondering about that.
Yeah.
And they're wondering, like, where do you draw the line? When do you call somebody? When do you hit the point where you go, this is bugging me enough, or I should have talked to somebody about this? I don't know if this was really abuse or whatever. Where do you draw the line and to talk to somebody?
Well, my hope is that anybody that feels like they might have a claim calls and discusses it with me or someone else, because what I'm hearing from person after person is that they've never shared their experience with another soul. I'm the first person some people have ever said anything about this to. And it means a lot to me. I put myself out there like I did, so I feel sort of responsibility to listen to every person. If once they have this conversation, they decide, you know what, I got it off my chest, I feel better, and I'd like nothing more to come of this, that's fair enough. The caller earlier said some nice things to me, but I'm fortunate because I got help young. In my 20s, I got some counseling.
Well, that was going to be my next question. If somebody goes through this, what else, besides to see a lawyer or a police officer, I mean, what type of counseling or what's available to them, and where do they go?
Other than private counseling, there are support groups that we try to put them in touch with. If it's clergy abuse, there are several support groups that I'm aware of that I pass the names on to.
And what are the symptoms? What are they suffering from this alleged abuse? What happens to them? Is it affecting them to get married? Or do they?
I've had several clients that have never been married as a result of their experience. Several that are in their 60s and 70s. I've had clients have substance abuse issues. Rage issues is not uncommon at all. Just issues with anger. I've had a lot of people just suffering in their relationships, difficulty in trusting in general.
I had somebody ask me at one time, as a police officer, I couldn't answer their question. I don't know. I was abused as a young boy. Guy told me he I don't know how he ended up. It happened to be a priest. Abused as a young boy. Didn't like it. Didn't want. But he went back a few times. His question is, does that make me a homosexual?
I don't know what,
I didn't know what to tell a kid. I try to.
I don't know what makes somebody, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, whether someone's homosexual or not matters as much as them being left-handed or right-handed. If it's an adult committing an act on a child, it's wrong. And it's confusing for any child to be approached and assaulted by an adult. Your first and earliest sexual experiences should not be with your priest or your teacher or any other person in a leadership position, your doctor. There are accusations of a local doctor. And that young person having that experience with somebody in a position of power and authority
And trust.
yeah, will set that young person on a trajectory and change the course of his or her life. So if somebody's questioning their own sexual preferences, that's something to be explored with a professional.
So if they're confused, they need help, they want to talk to somebody, when you say there's private services, like where would they go? Who do you go to? Psychologist, psychiatrist? Who do you go to see?
We through my office, we try to pair the person up with the agency that we think is most suited to help that person. There are private agencies, there are private therapy. I had the benefit of having good insurance when I was on the fire department, and I was able to go and get my own counseling, and it was very beneficial for me.
This is a really crazy subject. It just brings out so many questions. You go to counseling, and I mean, what do they tell you? Oh, it's okay. What did they tell you to break that mindset to think you either did something wrong, or what could they possibly tell you?
Well, the most typical thing I've heard was a thought that I had myself. What was it about me that attracted that perpetrator? And the answer is pedophiles and adults attracted to children, they know how to identify the child that is most easily abused. It's kind of like that wounded animal.
But you weren't abused. You realized what was going on and you got out of there.
Yeah, but I was assaulted, and I was in a situation that was tragic, and that priest picked me, and I came to learn later there were probably things in my personality that he saw, an interest in the church.
What type of things would they look for? I mean, what
Well-
let me ask you this. Is there something a parent could see in their kid that could go, I better talk to this kid, or I better take him to see somebody? Is there some characteristic that would warn a parent that this child may be vulnerable?
There's a ton of research that addresses that. My answer is that the parent who's doing that research and is interested in their child probably has a child that's not going to be a target to somebody like these abusers. It's the parents asleep at the wheel. It's the parents, for instance, in my own case, I went to Mass with my grandmother. My parents didn't come with me. And I was interested in the subject matter. I was interested in religion. So I would hang around after Mass and ask the priest a question. Well, you said this during your homily. I didn't understand. I wanted to talk. And he saw that, my grandma was there, but there was really, my dad wasn't there. It was just my grandmother, and she was thrilled that I was talking to the priest. So he befriended me, and I was, I suppose, looking for a mentor, and that's what made me an easy target for him. And most of the stories I hear are similar. The mother whose husband is either absent or not involved with his own children, is thrilled that this other adult is taking an interest in her children. So they, go to the movies with Mr. So-and-so or Father so-and-so.
Yeah, I heard a case one time, somebody I knew, a priest had wanted to take this young boy on a trip. We'll go on, we'll go fishing, we'll do this, we'll do that. But when the boy's father heard about it, he wanted to go and confront, he wanted to go beat the priest up. He understood what he thought was going on.
Yes.
The mother and the grandmother of the child said, no, leave him alone, forget it, just let it, is that the wrong thing to do?
It's the wrong thing to do. It's certainly the wrong thing to do. Parents need to be with their children when they are with adults that they don't know very, very, very well. The potential for victimization is just too great. The risks are too high. So I would say, yeah, that's not something that ought to be done.
We're talking with Paul Barr. He's an attorney. He's representing some people claiming sexual abuse, and we'll come back and take more phone calls. We're at 333-3020. When we pick up, hang on, and we'll be with you. Let's get real for a moment. When you're looking for a home appliance repairman, what do you look for? Well, in most cases, you look for someone who can do the job honestly and do it correctly the first time. Then you look for someone who's reasonable, someone who's going to give you a fair price for the work he does. Well, I got one that's even better than that. He'll give you the best price you're going to ever hear. His name is Chris Moore, and his service call is $35. Got a problem with the stove, refrigerator, freezer, washer, dryer, hey, you name it. If it's a home appliance, Chris can fix it, and he does it for a $35 service call, plus the cost of the parts and installation. Now, I don't know of any other repairman who's had as much experience, over 30 years, as Chris Moore, who will come to your home for a $35 service call. Once you have Chris at your house, you're going to want him back again and again and again, and you're going to recommend him to all your friends and relatives. So you want to have that phone number handy. So what do? Well, let's update. Let's not put it on a piece of paper and stick it somewhere where it's going to get lost or fall off, dry up, and disappear. Put it in your cell phone where you know you can find it when you need it. Because someday you will need Chris Moore's number. It's 523-5911. Chris Moore's Appliance Repair. $35 service call plus the cost of the parts and installation. 523-5911. Put that in your cell phone right now. Talking with attorney Paul Barr, 333-3020. I'm getting a few texts here. People are saying, make sure you give us Paul's number because we want to talk to him, but we don't want to go on the air. They're afraid of being recognized, which I can understand. Sure. But if you do have a question, you could call us, 333-3020, and I will give you his contact number before the end of the show. Let me ask you this. It seems, and maybe unfairly so, we're talking about Catholic priests and the Catholic religion. Are we finding this in a lot of other religions?
I personally have not gotten any cases with ministers from other religions, but I have cases involving coaches, cases involving teachers, a case involving a Boy Scout leader. It only makes sense that people that are interested in children, abusing children, will find their way to places where there are a lot of children and where they can create a reputation of trust. And what's typical, and I want to make this point, if you have an adult that's not a family member, or maybe that is a family member for that matter, who works hard to be alone with children without being supervised, that's a red flag. You want to make sure that, one case in particular, a teacher running a group of students was always the first teacher in the building with the students and was always the last teacher to leave at the end of the day, running his group as late as 10 o'clock at night with students in the building. And then having students to his home unsupervised. These are red flags as far as I'm concerned, because I've learned too many times that in those situations, children are abused by people they trust.
So you gotta steer away from that particular situation.
And supervise, be involved, be where your kids are. I taught confirmation for my daughter because I didn't want to leave her with anybody else. And when I taught, the door was always opened. If there was one student, I was meeting with that student in the hallway. I was always careful that I was never in a situation where I was alone in a room with a student with the door closed. And good professionals know that. Incidentally, I'm also a certified school teacher and school principal. I don't know if you knew that.
No.
I
I knew you were a fireman.
I was a firefighter. I also taught for 5 years for the Niagara Falls School Board.
Oh, I didn't know that.
The
Now-
butcher, the baker, and the candlestick.
Yeah, I guess. So let me ask you this. We see this on TV all the time. I got in an accident and he got me $2 million. He gave me $3,000 when they offered me two. I mean, what kind of money are people trying to collect on these sexual abuse suits? And what is the average suit settling for?
Well, none of these cases have settled yet in New York State because none of them have been filed yet. The law just changed. It was recently enacted. However, the Catholic Church had a private program called the IRCP. Don't ask me what the acronym stands for, but they had their own program. And I actually went through the program myself, personally, and I also represented a few people in the program. The program, in my view, was an attempt to induce people making these claims to settle early before this law was enacted. They were dangling some money like a carrot in front of people.
How much?
Well, the awards that I heard ranged from $40,000 up to the highest one was $600 and something thousand. That was the highest award. With that person who was offered $600,000, and incidentally, I understand he turned that down because what was done to him is just ridiculous. Just the worst thing I ever heard. But that's what the IRCP program through the diocese was offering. So
Is there a, I mean, and you could probably tell me more than anybody else, they say, well, when you're in an accident, you get 4 times your medical and 2 times this. Is there a formula?
There's no formula. There's no formula for accidents, and there's no formula for this either. Some states, they apply a formula, and it's related to the medical bills. In New York State, it's not. Your damage is based on the treatment that you have. Your harm is what the doctors say your harm is. For a typical injury case, a car accident case requires that the person, to even get in the courtroom, have an injury that falls within one of the 9 serious injury categories. I won't get into the 9 categories, but you have to have documented evidence of an injury.
How much evidence to bring this type, sexual abuse, how much evidence? And again, I'm thinking the evidence is not going to be there except that the person's making this claim.
Well, it will be, in some instances, it will have to do with what the person says happened to them and how credible they seem to a jury.
If 10 people said, the priest told me he wanted to examine me because he was afraid I was going to be serious. If 10 people said that, does that make that believable?
Well-
and payable?
What I think makes a case believable is, and in my particular case, I think I'm credible. I will hopefully seem credible because I reported my incident back in the 80s to the diocese. I was ignored. I also, after being divorced, going through the Catholic annulment process, I referred to that incident in my papers and again was ignored. Now, I had nothing to gain by reporting that priest except to get him away from children. And I was ignored. But there's documentation in the 90s that I accused this
when you
priest.
said you were ignored, you went and told somebody, and what did they just say? Okay, thank you, we'll look into it.
That was
type of thing.
They thanked me for coming in, and I never heard another word about it. And that priest continued in ministry for years after.
And did you make another attempt along those lines after the initial?
I did not. I put it in their hands, and I assumed because I was young, I was in my 20s when I made that report. I was encouraged to do that by my counselor, and that was something I thought was important to do. But no, I didn't follow through. I wished I had, because it might have prevented other young people from being abused.
It's funny that, I'm getting these texts and people are saying, they're asking questions and they don't want to be identified, so they're not calling in. But I'm looking and I can get a number. There's 120 people watching you live right now.
Wow.
And now this show will go on to YouTube later tonight and it will be there in archive forever till we take it down, which I'm not planning to do. So if you want to get a hold of somebody and tell them this is something you should see, it will be on YouTube probably later tonight. This is 15th of April, so just for your own information. We're coming back with Paul Barr, and we'll give you his number and some more information when we return. At the Wellness Park Pharmacy at 86th and Buffalo Avenue, off Main Street, you're not just another customer, and your needs are important. To them, you're a somebody.
Sometimes you wanna go where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came.
Now under new ownership, both pharmacies will see to it that you get the personal service that you deserve. Want to give them a try? Then call right now, 260-1918, and tell them you want to switch your prescriptions over to the Wellness Park Pharmacy or Community Pharmacy in Niagara Falls. They'll make all the phone calls to make it happen. And both pharmacies offer free home prescription delivery. And when you have them on the phone, be sure to ask about their wide selection of CBD products. Available in creams, oils, gummies, and much, much more. Get all the details today by calling 260-1918. The Wellness Park Pharmacy at 86th and Buffalo Avenue and the Community Medical Pharmacy on Michigan Avenue just off Main. Call 260-1918.
Where everybody knows your name. Everybody knows your name. And they're always glad you came.
You know, the Wellness Park, they've got those gummies and dog biscuits and stuff for the animals, too. I don't know how many people are out there, worried about their animals, but if they had joint pain, hip pain, and that, CBD products. What do you think about that? Now we're getting into the possible marijuana and CBD, which CBD apparently is all legal and it's none of the harmful stuff, but
Right.
the hemp plants, what do you think of the
Well,
coming of that?
If it's beneficial, I say why not? Why not? Hopefully it's not snake oil. Hopefully it's as beneficial as people claim it is. I've heard nothing but good things about
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
So
but
people
me-
are really getting a positive
me
effect
too.
from it.
Paul, you're handling, and again, what are we calling this? Sexual abuse cases? Is that what we're terming it?
It's called the Child Victims Act. New York State's
Well,
Child
okay,
Victims
now,
Act.
well, let me ask you this then: does it have to be a child? What if it's a woman who a priest or somebody abused or forced them into sex or told them you're having this problem? If you do this, I can absolve you. I don't know what goes on, but
Sure. If,
you say child are adults.
Well, we're talking about this particular law, but if an adult is abused by, again, somebody in a position of power, whether it's their church or their physician or anyone else who's in a position that makes you vulnerable, they may have a claim. The statute of limitations is different for that situation because you're talking about an adult. But
when you say statutes of limitations, you're talking prosecution, but you're also talking monetary remedies.
Yes, there are statutes of limitation both in criminal and in civil statutes. So if you're assaulted as an adult, whether physically or sexually, you only have 1 year to make that claim. 1 year against the person that did it, and 3 years against the institution that was responsible for protecting you. So maybe a good example of that might be in a nursing home situation. If somebody in a nursing home is assaulted by maybe a worker, and the family learns about it, you've got 3 years to bring the claim, 3 years from when you learn about it.
Now, do you handle all these cases?
I do handle all those cases.
Accidents and
Yes.
sexual abuse and
Yes.
nursing homes?
Of course, yes.
And
Yeah.
do you do matrimonial?
I do not do matrimonial. No, we do civil litigation involving injuries and sex crimes. Those are so car accidents, slip and falls, dog bites, those types of things, along with the kind of cases that we're talking about today.
We'll give you Paul's number and contact information as soon as we come back.
Your locally owned Cub Cadet dealer has genuine parts, accessories, trained service technicians, and the widest selection of innovative Cub Cadet products. We're here for you whenever you need us, with expert service and support to keep your equipment running at peak performance for years to come. Take advantage of exceptional financing at your local Cub Cadet dealer today.
Stop by your locally owned Cub Cadet dealer, Niagara Lawn and Garden Equipment, today.
Paul Barr, attorney, with us. It's an interesting program. There are over 100 people watching live right now, and I understand why people don't call in. Should they be hesitant to talk to you now when they come? Is it lawyer privilege? I mean, nothing leaves. Is it?
Yes, it's a sacred bond that your attorney has with you, especially in a delicate case like this.
Okay, but do you end up at what? I talk to people who are victims of a crime, and they go, "Well, this is the guy who did it, but I don't want to go to court and face him." Do they have to go to court and
Not
tell
necessarily.
their story?
No,
and-
not necessarily. We will handle every case on a case-by-case basis, and only go as far as we need to go, and as far as the client is comfortable with going. So once the client becomes uncomfortable and thinks it's far enough, then that's where we stop.
People want to get a hold of you, Paul. They want to maybe discuss more, or again, there's no cost for a consultation. There's
None
no cost
whatsoever,
to make a
no.
claim. Where do they find you? How do they get a hold of you? And is there a website or something? Where can we steer them for more information?
Well, the firm name, my law firm, is Fanizzi, F as in Frank, ANIZZI, and Barr, BARR. We have a website, Fanizzi and Barr, and our phone number is 716-284-8888. 716-284-8888.
You're located on Pine Avenue?
On Pine Avenue, 2303 Pine Avenue.
And people with what concerns about this, when do they decide we should talk to a lawyer?
If they're concerned at all that they're interested in the issue, I'm happy to talk. If they think they may have been victimized, I'm happy to talk. I'm learning even people have delayed memories, and then they start hearing this and they repress their memories, and there are even cases like that. So if you think you may want to talk about this, you ought to, because it may change the direction of your life.
Scary, but interesting. Paul, thank you. Paul Barr, ladies and gentlemen. Good luck pursuing these predators.
Thanks for having me, Sal.
Don't forget, for the best memories, 60s, 70s, 80s, some tunes you're going to love, enjoy, and remember and sing along with. Go to NiagaraRadio.net 24/7. The best of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and a few 50s thrown in for a little flavor. NiagaraRadio.net. Also, look for this show to appear soon on YouTube.